Was he still romantically involved with the sister, Julia?
Yes, they were. Julia's birthday was just last week, and she had invited my son to have a slice of cake with her. People don't understand what's going on. If my son loved her, she loved him. Julia and William were separated, but they were still together.
She was so close to her mother. I mean, as close as a mother and daughter could be. She did everything for her mother. Her mother and her brother and her sister, her family was her whole world. That's what she did everything for. And to lose everyone, almost everyone, and a child, you know, in one weekend, it's an unbelievable and unthinkable thing.
Was the victim's own handgun used to murder him and his family? Was that gun actually stolen several months ago? We are taking your calls live out to Charlene in Michigan. Hi, Charlene.
Hi, Nancy. Thanks for taking my call.
Thank you for calling, dear. What's your question?
Oh, I was wondering, because there were so many people who came out and speaking for Balfour when this first happened and giving alibis, has any of their cell phone records or his cell phone records been pulled up to see if, you know, what kind of activity was on there?
To Michelle Sagona with America's Most Wanted, I'm sure that's one of the first things the cops did.
Oh, you're right, Nancy. That's exactly correct. Investigators, I'm sure, at this point are definitely looking at his cell phone records, his alibis. You know, you had Balfour's mom on your show the other night, and she states that he was with a girlfriend at the time. So they're really working to, you know, verify a lot of this information at this point.
But it's also our information, Michelle Sagona, that the girlfriend blew the alibi.
Yes, there is that information as well. You know, so it's a lot of times in these investigations, as you know, and as things come up, whether it's with cell phones and girlfriends and alibis and things like that, they have to go back over and check and double check and triple check and start verifying stories and moving forward in a positive direction at this point. I mean, that's all that they can do.
To Kathy Cheney with the Chicago Defender, William Balfour's mother says he is set to walk free on Monday. What do you know?
Well, actually, I know that there is a parole violation hearing that's set for November 10th. So the likelihood of the Illinois Department of Corrections letting him out before then is slim to none.
Pretty slim. To Doug Burns and Christopher Amolsch, our attorneys joining us tonight. Let's unleash the lawyers. To Doug Burns, I find it highly unusual that he would be picked up on a parole violation for simply not reporting to a parole officer.
Yeah, but Nancy, anytime you have somebody ostensibly a person of interest in a murder, then they're going to, you know, tighten it up and pick them up on something less serious. And the
That's
point
my
is,
point exactly.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. And they're going to hold them until Monday's hearing. And also, one other point, very important, Nancy, is that when you get picked up on a parole violation, you don't necessarily have the same Fifth Amendment rights either, because part of parole is cooperating.
Absolutely.
Right.
And I believe that parole hearing is the 10th. So Christopher Amolsch, attorney from Washington, Christopher, we keep saying if the cops had this, they'd charge him. If they had that, if they had DNA, if they had fingerprints. You know what? They don't have to do anything really until just before that parole hearing, because if he's the guy, he's in the can. He's not going anywhere. Why should they reveal their cards now?
They won't. They're going to wait until the last minute. And Doug's exactly right. But I think that the Fifth Amendment rights that he made, that would only apply to the parole violation. They can't ask him any questions about any other pending criminal charge. So they're going to hold on to that case as long as they can.
They can ask him anything they want to.
Yeah, but he doesn't have to answer them. He has a Fifth Amendment right to not incriminate
blah, blah. Of course, he doesn't have to answer them, but they can ask. You said they can't ask him those questions. Yes, they can.
They can't ask him and expect him to answer. I mean, part of what Doug was saying is that
make up your mind, Amos. Let's talk about the law. You're making up what? Your answer?
You know, if he has no Fifth Amendment rights as it relates to a parole violation, but as it relates to an underlying murder investigation, he absolutely does. So they can ask all they want, but he doesn't have an obligation to answer.
Fifth Amendment is right to avoid self-incrimination. You don't have to talk to police and incriminate yourself. You don't have to take the stand and incriminate yourself. That's what Amolsch is talking about. So, Christopher Amolsch.
Yes, ma'am.
You just said they can't ask him questions about the murders. Absolutely not true.
Well, my point is they can't ask him and expect him to answer. The point is, with the parole violation, he has an obligation to cooperate and answer those questions. He doesn't have an obligation to answer questions about the other charges. So they will sit on it as long as they can, and keep him in jail as long as they can until they have a case to make against him.
Joining me right now is a very special guest that is an American Idol finalist and friend of Jennifer Hudson's. John Peter Lewis is with us. Thank you for being with us. Everyone, you remember John Peter Lewis from his days with American Idol. He toured with Jennifer Hudson after the Idol show for a couple of months. What can you tell us about her during this emotional time, the time of the funerals?
Well, I mean, she's a really religious person, you know. I think she's going to be sticking a lot to her faith right now. I mean, I always gained, you know, a sense from her that she was, you know, she's just very religious, you know, just very, very faithful, you know, to her you know, her beliefs and things like that. So
Now,
I think,
this brother and mother were there to support her throughout the Idol competition, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they were always there for her. I mean, and you know, what a horrible thing to have happen, you know, to such a close, you know, support group for her. You know, I mean, they were there for everything. You know, I mean, I remember her mother, you know, on the set, and I remember her brother all the time, and spoke with him, you know, all the time. Actually, you know, every you know, we see him almost every day, and so, you know, it was it's really horrible to think of something like this to happen to, you know, someone that you know, and you know, it's tragic. I mean, it's a reminder of how fragile life is, you know.
To Dr. Joseph Del Tito, professor of psychiatry, Dr. Del Tito, I know personally that crime victims go through a lot of phases of grieving, but when you are dealing with an ongoing criminal investigation, that retards or delays the grieving process. Would you not agree?
Oh, I'd very much agree. Anything that keeps this type of thing going, alive, etc. That's why people talk about closure when they find who the assassin is in a case.
Whoa. Let me see, Del Tito.
solved.
There he is. What do you mean closure? Because
Well,
this changes a crime victim's life forever. There's
No,
no closure like one day you say, you know, I feel a lot better now. It changes everything about you. It practically changes your DNA makeup when someone you love is murdered, much less your mother.
I agree that people in these situations really do not get over them. But somewhere, somehow, with time and with knowledge coming out and with support, they're often able to move on with their lives and put these things a little bit more on the back burners. But I wholly agree with you that people really do not get over these events.
Dr. Del Tito, the investigation, explain to me your thoughts as to why that is a speed bump in the grieving process.
Well, it's a speed bump because people are keeping it alive. They're coming to you for information. You're following it in the news. You're at some point in these situations, or when there's just a death by normal circumstances, someone goes back to work. They start to take on the roles that they had before as wife, mother, sister, singer, whatever. In this type of situation, it keeps them as the identified friend or relative of the victim.
Another thing, doctor, to my mind is you don't really know what happened. If somebody dies of a heart attack in the hospital, the loss is just as extreme if that's one of your loved ones, but you know what happened. Here, they have the added pain of not knowing what the people that they loved more than anything suffered in their last moments. Did they suffer at all? Did they know what was happening? Did they have pain? She has no idea what her mother went through.
I think it's unfortunately that she does have some idea of the suffering that the mother must have gone through, but you're correct. In not knowing, in the doubt, the goblins that come to us in the middle of the night are much more prominent and make it much more difficult just to simply get back to baseline activities and to grieve in an appropriate way, and in some ways to try to have the strength to continue on.
Michelle Sagona, the funerals, tell me about it.
The funeral was today, Nancy, and was a private service with a few hundred close family and friends. Reverend Jesse Jackson, Chicago's mayor, was there. Fantasia was there and actually sang a song. It was just a very touching, you know, obviously extremely emotional ceremony. And there was a public ceremony yesterday as well. So as the family and friends and everyone came out today, I can only imagine what they were going through, and our thoughts and prayers are definitely with them.